The Army Painter is my favorite hobby company in the entire world. My desk is literally full of Army Painter products, and it takes me from being an average painter to putting above tabletop standard models out into the tournament scene. Not only that, but the Army Painter has sponsored more competitive play than any other hobby company in the industry. They allow us to keep doing the things that we do. If you enjoy the Army Painter as much as I do, head over to thearmypainter.com where you can use the discount code ARTOFWAR5 to get a discount on your next order. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another 40K stream. I'm Richard here, joined by my co-host, Mr. Jack Harpster. We're going to be talking about some of the early trends in the Pariah Nexus October meta, and guess what? There's a lot of exciting stuff happening, Jack.
Yeah, there's a lot of things getting mixed up right now. A lot of interesting balance changes, and I'm excited to dive right in.
Yeah, we're still in the early days, but I think there's a couple trends that we can kind of highlight and look at and analyze, and we're leading into one of the biggest events of the year, which is going to be the World Championships.
Oh, do you have a ticket for that?
I believe I do.
Yeah, I need to check. I think I got one as well.
I believe the Art of War team got one at the BFS team event.
Yeah, we did.
Great team event. Check it out next year. But we will be there, and we'll be hanging out and having a great time with all the other people traveling internationally. And those lists are going to be due very soon. So a lot of these trends are going to matter quite a lot, and we'll probably see them even more pronounced in a couple weeks. Yeah,
they're due on Tuesday. So I personally am deciding between 3 different lists. It's great. It's great. Richard has mine made up for like 2 months.
Yeah.
But I'm deciding between 3 lists. Nick's deciding between 2. Quentin's deciding between 2. John, I don't know.
I think there's going to be some sort of late surprise. That always happens.
Yeah.
Every time. But that's not what this session is about. We're going to talk about early trends in the meta, but next week we'll probably end up talking about WCW and kind of have like a preview show for that.
Yeah, that should be a lot of fun. Man, WCW last year was a hell of a time, and I'm very excited for it.
It's just great to see everybody, and hopefully we'll see a lot of new international faces as well.
Yes, one of those is, believe it or not, Custodes.
Golden bananas.
Now, are they good enough to win the event with? You know, who's to say? Maybe the answer might be yes. It might be, though.
Nobody's preparing for it.
But I do love my golden men.
All right. Well, before we dive in here and kind of talk about some of the data and things we want to mention, please do give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell your friends about us. All of that is going to massively help us continue to grow our YouTube channel and our audience and keep reaching new players who are trying to get into competitive 40K. So that all really helps. In addition, leave a comment below letting us know how you feel about the meta, what you think some of the main trends are. Maybe your local meta is a bit different than ours. That's perfectly awesome. We want to hear about that. So please post a comment below after the stream. In addition, if you were looking for more content from us, yesterday we had an absolutely amazing game between a brand new style Death Guard list with Mortarion, all the Death Shroud Terminators, up against John's competitive Dark Angels list, which has been a dominant force over the past couple months. Go head to head, and that game was fantastic. You can check it out in the War Room, but there's going to be releasing either today or tomorrow our post-game recaps of those kind of retrospective, like here's what I should have done better in the game. Here's what I'll probably be doing going forward. Maybe some changes to the list. But these post-game recaps are what we're doing for every single battle report. There's 3 a week, so that means you're getting 6 post-game analysis. If you want to check out the War Room at thewarroom.vhx.tv, of course, it's not just battle reports. There's tons of other amazing content like Jack Theory, strategy sessions, and much more. So please do check it out. There's a lot of really cool stuff in there, and that 3D free trial will help you kind of get your feet wet with it.
Absolutely. You can watch as many videos as you want. Just shove them into your open mouth.
And we put a lot of emphasis on having shorter, very concise videos that'll get you into the action and the information as quickly as possible.
We've been doing that with our new State of the Factions. All right. Let's discuss some numbers.
Let's do it. All right, you take it away, Mr. Jack here. So this is the meta dashboard.
Yeah, so Meta Monday, the 40K Meta Monday guy has his own website now, which is sick. He's probably had it for a while. I just didn't notice. But we've got some interesting numbers in here. We've got Sky Splinter Assault still at a 66% win rate for the weekend. Nerf him again, I say. Hit him down, Real Space and Sky Splinter are both over. Real Space better be careful. It's pretty close. But Drukhari as a whole has 63. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to say. That army is not good.
Hey, hey, Scari's still kicking butt out there, man.
Scary is Scary.
Yeah, he's not going to stop. And I've been liking a lot of the changes he's been making to his list. He is constantly in the Drukhari channel in our Discord community talking about new list ideas. So he's still super pumped about Drukhari and still doing really well with it. And we can see that other people are as well.
He proves that you can do well if you are very good and you know what you're doing with your army. Because Scary is a force. Drukhari, less of a force. For sure.
They just have a lot of problems out there.
They do, but 63% win rate. Now, that is only 16 players. That isn't a lot of, that isn't a very large sample size. Just funny. I just think it's funny. I don't know about you.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, the problems that Drukhari have are, there's like a narrow band of armies that are just extremely difficult to play against, I would say. But for the most part, you can play a game because you have a lot of stuff. You have all sorts of tricky mechanics that people can mess up against. And that's what Drukhari is really relying on, is setting up a bunch of difficult scenarios, and you trip on a rake on one of them. Other one is a success, and then the last one is kind of a neutral thing. Well, guess what? You're still in the game. Yeah. That's what they're all about.
And if we look at and that's just for this weekend. If we look at stat check, and because our personal theory is that it's really easy. It's easier to beat worse players with Drukhari.
It's over on positive, right?
It's over on positive records. Yeah, positive records. Drukhari have the highest percentage of positive records into below 50% players by 50% players. Yeah, right there. Positive records. They have the highest percentage of them. I don't know. Sometimes numbers are weird, and all I know is that I am personally not very scared to play into Drukhari.
I'll take Drukhari over Guard every single day.
A faction that is very the complete direct opposite of that is Sisters of Battle, man.
Well, it's really interesting because Bringers of Flame, first time ever under 50%, I imagine.
Probably.
Because they're at 44. Obviously, it's just a weekend. There's not tons of players.
Yeah.
But man, that's surprising to see, because I still think among the top Sisters players, it's still probably the favored detachment to go for. But the dramatic drop in number of people playing Sisters.
I wonder if Jeffrey Kolodner went to an event, because that would explain why Hallowed Martyrs has a ridiculously high win rate compared to the others. Because there are 3 players who took Hallowed Martyrs, and one of them went X&O or X&1. That would make sense if it was him. Could have been.
He's been playing that same style for a while, and it's still very strong.
Yeah,
so
very
not
strong.
Too surprising, but not many other people are doing it. I also saw, I think it was Stephen Box was maybe playing Hallowed Martyrs. It could have been Army. No, actually, he was playing Army of Faith.
He was playing Army of Faith.
Yeah. So it looks like a lot of Sisters players are still experimenting and seeing if there is a legit alternative for them from the Bringers of Flame style.
Okay. Stephen Box is playing Hallowed Martyrs?
Oh, he is? Okay.
Okay, cool. I mean, that could also explain it, for sure. The things to keep in mind here is that this is one weekend of data. It's just interesting. It's not nothing crazy.
One of the things I expect to happen over time, especially if Bringers of Flame gets more direct changes and then they drop some of the Sisters points, is that those detachments actually even up. I think they have 3 to 4 really quite good detachments overall. Kind of like where Tau is right now, where every detachment is competitive.
Except...
No, the crew one is... They got a lot of points. It got a lot of... Okay, it has 100% win rate on the Art of War streams, so jot that down, Jack.
One of one, which just goes to show low data size sample, whatever.
I'm not worried about that. But what the thing about it is...
Imperial Agents also has 100% win rate on our stream, for the record.
It dropped a lot of points. Rampagers are actually a unit you can actually run. You can spam Kroot now. And you can still bring all the Tau guns if you want to. It is much more competitive than it was. It probably is still the worst out of the 4 of them, but it is playable for sure.
Yeah,
at a GT level.
All right, we got some super chats here. We got Jonathan Haynes with a $2 Canadian super chat. Says, "Morning, Jack and Seeks." No, morning you, Jonathan.
Good morning to you, Jonathan.
Glad to have you here.
Awesome to have you.
All right, next up we got Here's Horse, There's Horse, Everywhere's Horse. His stats for the Stats God.
Stats for the Stats God.
Stats.
And the cool thing is that because it's so low data, you get to see all sorts of weird, interesting things, and you're going to see it with Imperial Agents when we look at the dashboard. They're all over the data in weird ways.
Yeah, bottom 50% players into bottom 50% players is Imperial Agents the best army, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was 73. It was something ludicrous, too.
It's very odd.
Then we have Brother Tobias. Thank you so much for your super chat. Ultramarines Vanguard won 3 GTs. Company heroes are good. They have been good this whole time. They're fantastic, and Ultramarines Vanguard has been good the entire time.
Yeah, it has. It's just tough to play. And as other options come down, Ultramarines Vanguard, big ups. Ultramarine Vanguard, still pretty solid. It's going off the Inceptor datasheet, which is not one that has aged well. But other than that, it's got great rules.
The Centurion Devastators are one of the strongest shooting units in the game when you give them +1 ballistic skill, ignores cover, and they can shoot you from downrange. It's a really, really good unit. It's quite tanky as well with armor content. You just kind of funnel CP into it. The big thing I think is that early Ventress change means you don't have to spend, a Phobos character and 30 points to get the Vector or bring a Calidus.
Yeah,
you can just have
Lord of Deceit.
75 points for that? Sheet. Whoa.
Yeah, he gives a unit Deep Strike and he is a Lord of Deceit aura. All for what? Did you say 75 points?
I believe early Ventress is 75 points. I could be wrong on that. He might be 85. But I think Sicarius is 85 and he's 75.
Something that's wildly too cheap.
And he gives the Centurions the Deep Strike.
Yeah, no,
so
he makes the army go, for sure.
And then you have Calgar in there. You guaranteed have extra CP. His unit can do anything that it wants to in the entire world. You get the Victrix card. It's a really good list, and I'm not surprised to see it do well. We've been talking about how Ultramarines are good this entire time. People are like, Space Marines are bad. We're like, no.
Ultramarines are pretty
Ultramarines
good.
Are really good.
If you want to run like Raven Guard, then for sure. Yeah, no, that's not very... that's pretty bad, actually. But Ultramarines have some rules. You can make an Ultramarines Gladius that's pretty tight. You can make an Ultramarines Vanguard that's pretty good. Honestly, you can probably make an Ultramarines Iron Storm or whatever.
Firestorm, I've seen it.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, interesting.
It's like, when you get those Ultramarine characters, they're just really good. Calgar is amazing. He'd be taken in almost every army.
Yeah. Redrum says, I think Orks are a sleeper pick to win WCW. They are pretty good. They are pretty good.
They're pretty good.
My main issue with them going to a big singles event is that they're inconsistent. If you go second with them, it's not ideal. It's not great. If you go first with the right Orks build, anyone can lose to that. Literally any army can.
Especially with the secret mission change, Orks gained a lot by that because they're one of the best armies for denying primary turn after turn. And they didn't like, oops, I'm out of my army turn 4. You get to come back with your secret mission and primary. Well, not anymore. So I think that was a big change for the Ork style.
Yeah. All right, Blomarties, definitely not. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say Lomarties. $5 super chat says, so is Jack considering Blood Angels for Worlds? No. You too good for us now? It makes me so mad I could rip a Xeno in 2. I mean, write a strongly worded letter. Thank you, Kyle. You can always tell. And so if I told you I was considering Blood Angels for Worlds, that would undermine your whole entire point here, right? So sure, I'm considering Blood Angels for Worlds. Why not? Let's go.
And it's the Lost Brethren for sure.
Of course. I mean, so Blomarties gets to be happy. I'm not currently considering Blood Angels, no, but maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'll write. I mean, I have been tooling around with lists, and if I write one that I like, I would definitely run it. Dark Like Vader, $3 super chat says, first GT soon taking Death Guard. I'm nervous. First off, thank you for your 10th super chat on our stream. I think Death Guard are in a very good place right now. Very, very good place right now. If you saw the game yesterday between Death Guard, where Quentin wanted to run 3 Myphitic Blight Haulers, but couldn't because we didn't own the models right now. They're on their way. Versus John's Ultramarines, Dark Angels Gladius. You'll see that army can really hang with some of the top dogs. Actually really hang. Myphitic Blight Haulers, by the way, are actually just really good. They're a meme, but then you look at their data sheet and you're like, it's very good for 90.
Death Shroud Terminators are ludicrously cheap right now.
They are. They went down 20 points per 6.
Again.
Yeah. They are really good. They're really good.
Way more durable than you think. Mortarian's ability to have an always on ignores mods aura is fantastic. You just need to make sure that you position yourself properly so you're not fighting on your half of the board. You have to be fighting on their half of the board.
Yeah. So, I really think Death Guard are quite good. I think they finally play like Death Guard should.
The meta coming down was huge for them.
It's huge. And Mortarian does mean that if you get good engagements into Deathwing Knights, you just rip them apart. I've had a unit of 6 Death Shroud go in and just rip 5 Deathwing Knights in half. Just one fight phase, just gone. An entire unit full to dead, just all of it. And that's average, by the way. You could probably kill 6 or 7 of them if you really stacked your buffs. Like if you went sustained 2, I think you get like 7 or 8 Deathwing Knights. You know.
I mean, you've been seeing Silent King for a while in a lot of Necron Hypercrypt lists. Mortarion is that tool in the Death Guard list. Ignore mods is incredibly potent when it's on close to your army.
Mortarion for 300 is bananas.
Yeah.
Like actually just bananas. So he's pretty neat. Red Rum, €5 super chat says Jack's 3 potential picks are Custodes. Thank you, Folger. Yeah, thank you, Folger. Thanks for making my decision harder. You handsome jerk. Death Guard and Tau. Siegs is easy. Admech, machine gun, machine. Well, I'm not going to confirm nor deny any of that.
I'm surprised you don't think I would play Tau. I've been playing a lot of Retaliation Cadre.
A lot of Ret Cadre. Ret Cadre is good. Ret Cadre is really good, man.
It is really, really good. But I have been playing a lot of Admech, and I love my Admech. What an army.
Are we using the last Meta Monday website? Because this looks wrong. Is this?
Jack pulled it up, so I'm going to blame him.
Whoa. Throwing me under the bus here. Whoops.
Yep. October 14th.
I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, here's stat check.
Go click on the actual week.
No.
Go click on the actual week.
This is scramble for the top.
Yeah, you just clicked on the one. Yeah.
Drukhari, they're really good right before the. All right, let's
see. I didn't double check his work.
No. You can't double check me. I will bite.
Black Templars.
No, why? That I think is Sasha. Legitimately, Sasha went to an event
Sasha
Edelkraut, who is insanely good, went to an event with Righteous Crusaders and slammed it out. And I think that because there's only 5 players this week.
You guys should have let us analyze the October meta for another.
That would have been very funny. That would be very funny. So I
wait. Go to Drukhari.
No, don't do this to them.
Yes.
No.
Yes, Jack.
Keep going. I love being proven right. It's my favorite thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Sky Splinter down to 42%.
Red Cadre at 43.
Tau didn't have
Imperial
an awesome
agents, rip and pepperoni.
It's only Imperialis fleet too.
It's the only detachment that is.
Hey, Space Marine players still play the bad detachments.
That's true.
There's just not enough Imperial agent players.
Both Imperial agent players this weekend knew what they were doing.
3 and 10, boys. Come on.
What I will tell you is that this last weekend at team event, Charlie Blowers on Imperial agents not only 20,000 suns, but went positive, had an average score of a 12. I think Imperial agents, if you really know what you're doing, pretty good teams army. Actually, a pretty good teams army. Because they blunt very, very well. This is from 40K Meta Monday, and it's a very common mistake. You want to go to the current week instead of the week that doesn't matter.
Instead of a month ago.
Yes. No, we didn't make this. The Meta Monday guy has a website now, which I don't know if he had one for a while, but he has one now. And again, cannot emphasize enough, current week.
JCMS Meta Monday.
Yes.
You can also find it on the Reddit pinned post if you go to Competitive 40K Reddit.
Oh, hey, he's in here. He's in the chat. Thank you so much.
What's up, JCMS? How you doing, buddy?
I cannot believe Charlie was here to hear me say that. That is unfortunate. He's actually going to be on our stream, though, coming up. He's going to be playing Into Moi. And we're going to see some hot Agents action from the Agents King himself.
Can they keep up their undefeated streak?
The Agents are 1 for 1. They did rip Drukhari clean in half on our stream. Okay, so we got Black Templars.
Poor Quinn. That broke Quinn's back. That was the game.
Yeah, he's like, if we've gone down this far, then what else can I do? So we got Black Templars. Sasha Edelkraut, who is phenomenally good, went undefeated, I believe he won an event with Righteous Crusaders, and given that there's 4 players in Righteous Crusaders, I think RC's pretty good. I think RC is actually pretty good.
The 2 5 Afino pain bricks are just absolutely annoying to deal with for almost any army.
They are, for sure. You get some really solid shooting behind it, and Vindicators, Ballistas, that sort of thing. And you get some really, really neat units.
Some trickery.
Yeah.
Devout push, no escape.
Yep. No escape is huge. No other army does that really right now. Actually, at all. Right? No other army can prevent fallbacks as far as I can remember. I'm probably missing one.
Isn't it Exalted 8-bound?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
And another army I played, by the way, Mephiston.
Yeah.
God,
But
I love preventing fallbacks.
It is rare.
It is pretty rare. So yeah, no, I really like Righteous Crusaders. You basically run out of units you want to take at 2,000 points, which is a great way to do it. And I think they're great. GSC continuing the trend of just absolutely dominating.
And you actually see it is that 3 of their detachments are performing very well. Outlander Corps was the one that had the most popularity before the update.
Yeah, hold on. Sorry. Yes, no. No other army does it except for like the 4 other armies that do it. So, yes, I realized I was incorrect here. All right. But they don't do it for a strat. You have to take a unit, and technically that's different. Okay. Moving on. Yeah, GSC is really good.
Yeah, you got Biosantic Brood Surge. This is the one that gained the most from the update, in that Aberrants went down, and a variety of the more combat-oriented things are a bit cheaper. So that detachment's seeing a lot of play. We saw people like Innes Wilson switching from Outlander Claw to the Brood Surge to test it out. And then Host of Ascension is the one that Nick likes a lot, and that's the old Index detachment. It can have a heinously strong shooting unit in the full Neophyte brick with the, is it, the Primus, and who's the other one you put in there?
What's this? Oh, the Primus and the...
What's the other character you put?
I think it's just the Primus.
You just put the Primus with the full rerolls?
You just put the Primus with,
crit
I think it's Chink in their armor. And you get crit 5s. You get sustained on the turn you come down. You get lethal hits from that. And then the CP gives you crit 5s, I believe. And then the Primus gives you full rerolls to hit, which is...
And you can 3.1 away them.
And you can 3.1 away them in Host of Ascension. Yeah, no, that helps a lot. That is a unit basically everyone runs in that detachment. It's very close range. It's not that durable, but if you shoot it, it can teleport away. Right, it goes into reserves, which is quite nice. So all in all, like, GSC is pretty good. It reminds me of what it reminds me is a story I heard a while back about the 4-minute mile. I don't know why it's that impressive. I can do a mile in 4 minutes in my car, no questions. But the 4-minute mile, for whatever reason, for like 100 years, or I'm oversimplifying this, but I read it like a month ago. People couldn't break. It was like 4.01, 4 point whatever, and they just couldn't break the 4-minute mile. And then some dude did it, and then like almost immediately, a bunch of people were able to do it because now they knew it was possible or something. And I blame Innes for that. I think Innes proved GSC you could actually win with GSC, and then people are like, oh, you could actually win with it, and then they went and do it.
And Eric Lathuris in Australia.
Yes,
it was like both of them.
Eric Lathuris as well. I got that story horribly wrong, but the intent is there, and it works.
Well, you didn't get it as wrong as the the dashboard for Metamonday.
Cut his mic. Cut his mic.
It's only the second worst thing for the stream.
That's what I think.
But next up, we got Admech, 56%. Part of that is due to one hero playing the Cybernetica detachment, getting 100% win rate. 3-0, baby.
3-0 at an RTT. Let's go.
Well, no, this isn't RTT data, right? This is GT data? I'm pretty sure Metamonday does GTs. It's 5-round events or higher. So
he's
they played
in the chat, so you can tell us.
So they played 3 events, and then I believe they dropped. And that still counts.
Hell yeah, brother. Let's go. Skitarii Hunter cohort is the highest of the real ones, of the real
I actually
detachments.
Think Cybernetic is the second best Admech detachment.
Yeah, you played into me with Radzone Core, and I was very whelmed by your rules.
It's bad. It's
not good.
It's not good. I think Cybernetic has better strats. Unfortunately, they're all in your command phase, so it's a very tricky detachment to play because you're pre-planning out a whole battle round. But I believe that having a robot unit is better than the Breacher unit in Radzone Core.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the tools that you get are pretty good.
Admech are like, I wouldn't even say a sneaky good army. They're just a really good army. If you're a shooting army, basically all the shooting armies right now hate stealth. And guess what?
Stealth on just nonsense.
Stealth and invulns on a bunch of high OC dudes who make your OC -1 to a minimum of 0. And then has some good shooting back. It's really strong.
The amount of people who get punished for leaving one Skitarii Vanguard alive with their squad happens every time.
Dude, you're... yeah, I only have 1 mile on the objective, but you're OC 0 with your 20 dudes. Yeah, no, that's not like fun. And then you have Lone Op 18. Like, it's just one of the best ways to punish a shooting army in the game.
It's got a full toolkit. It's really fun to play. And there's not many people playing it. Admech is one of the least played armies, but if you do get used to the army and put a lot of reps into it, it's super rewarding.
And you don't need both kidneys. You can afford a new army.
Yeah.
You really only need one. Just take care of that one and you'll be fine.
If you sell off all your other armies to Warpfire, you can get one Admech army.
Yeah, probably.
We got a super chat here from Grokvar. Thanks so much, Grokvar. He says, go Admech. Heck yeah, go Admech. 2 quick questions. When do you think the next balanced data slate will drop? And any other quick tips from myself running the cohort Cybernetica. So for your first question, the only info we have is from the Warcom article from the October update, which said end of December, something would happen. It said they're going to look at Space Marines, Codex Space Marines. They're going to look at, I believe it was GSC and their comeback mechanic. And then it was Sisters Miracle Dice. They mentioned those 3 things. So hopefully we'll see something pre-LVO on that is what Games Workshop has said. That'd be super exciting. Now, in terms of the Cybernetica detachment, so I think the biggest thing is to not go crazy on the robots. I still think they're overcosted, but you want to run 1 unit. I think 1 unit of 4 is still a really good place to apply the various buffs. But what you need around the robots, and what I didn't do in the game that I played with them a bit ago, was have enough reliable shooting. So I think you go for the 3 Scorpius Disintegrators plus the 4 robot package, and then you build MSU all around that. And that's a really strong core, I would say.
All right. Next up, we've got Chaos Demons,
Nick's
55%.
Nick's favorite army.
Nick's favorite army, and unfortunately it plays... The best way to play Chaos Demons is like the least Nick playstyle I've ever seen. It's like 7 big boys just going. And Nick, I think, is like... He has a disability in that he physically cannot do that. Like, he could try, but he won't do it.
He tried against my Drukhari, and I shut that down.
Well, yeah, because he didn't believe in it. He failed like every save you handed him. So
you have to run Bellicor for the style to really work. You have to take away that first shooting phase.
Yeah, you basically have to run. Like, I like a bunch of Keepers of Secrets because they're annoying to kill for cost. You run Rodigus. You run a Great Unclean one with the 4 up Feel No Pain. You run Bellicor, like you just run like 7 Greater Demons or 6 Greater Demons or some nonsense, then like a unit of Plague Bearers and some 3-man units of whatever, like Screamers.
What about
or something.
18 Blood Crushers?
You could do that. You can do that.
We've seen it do.
You will
decently.
win game with that. Not games, game. You'll win game with that. And it'll be an awesome game. One you'll tell your children
What about beating Vic with it? Manny did it.
Okay, well then never
That
mind.
happened. LGT.
It did.
I'm sorry if you're in chat, Vic. I'm going to keep bringing it up.
No, you don't have to keep bringing it up. You don't. We can just memory hole it and just forget it ever happened.
We can't.
No.
Yeah, so I mean, Leagues, not Leagues of Votann, Chaos Demons is, they really need a different playstyle available to them, is really what needs to happen.
Yeah, I would say that.
They're very stat checky. They're not the most interesting to play. They have some good stratagems, but then they have a lot of data sheets that just are different ways to say you have a 4-up invuln and don't do much.
Yeah, their damage output is pretty lackluster. They need some kind of way for anything smaller than a monster to do something. Anything, really. Yeah. Like, I suppose Blood Crushers do things, but like nothing else that is smaller than a monster like does anything, right? You have the Ren Masters on Blood Throne. Those are pretty decent. But other than that, like, what else smaller than a monster like does anything? You can have a bunch of Plague Bearers that are tough to kill. And, like, that's fine. It's good even. They're not that expensive. But they don't do anything. They're not going to beat like a unit of Reavers in combat somehow.
I think they just need to redesign the army as a whole when they eventually get a codex and make them less stat checky, less based around running lots of greater demons, and more based around the synergy between a greater demon and its stuff nearby.
Yeah, like if you had 1 or 2 greater demons and the greater demons were like I know they are a locus for shadows, but
like a
and whatnot,
significant,
but like it actually maybe a buff that like matters. Because really, realistically, the shadows change only affects themselves. Right? Like, I'm in my own shadows, sick. I have a 4 Feel No Pain all the time now. And you can do the drop a big boy to drop a second big boy 6 away and go for the charge. But those are really the 2 things that you get out of that. If they were like some kind of locus that buffed the units around them, specifically the small ones, I think that'd be a lot more interesting. We would get demon armies that look like demon armies instead of just, super friends.
Leagues of Votann up here, and I think this is partially off the back of the German meta, which has a lot of Votann players. They've ranked Votann extremely highly over the past couple metas, and that is on the back of running 20 to 30 Berserks, which is the combat unit. And I've said it many times, the reason that I don't like them on US open terrain is the distance between ruins is very high, and you can charge block people.
Yeah, US open terrain is very well named, for it is quite open.
But WTC terrain has ruins that are very close together, and you cannot charge block, which makes Berserks a unit that doesn't have fly, that moves very slow, and doesn't have advance and charge, all of a sudden an absolute beater of a unit. So this is one of the main ways in which terrain formats dramatically reshape an army, and it's no surprise that they're doing super well over there.
Yeah, I played a game into...
Brian?
No, into one of the French WTC guys.
Gotcha.
And... what happened was he was playing 15 Berserks in 3 transports. We were playing on only the middle matters and they disappear, supply drop. We're playing on that. We're playing Hammer and Anvil, and he had ruins right next to each of the objectives. He could just stage them in. So if I go on the objective, he gets to hit me with Berserks. And that's what ended up happening, right? I got the game, but it was like real close. It was really hard because the Berserks would just at one point come out and just go, that is a dead ghost kill. Just full to dead, just gone. And there's no way around it. Like, I have to put something on the objective, right? And so it's either like a stealth suit unit that got shot, or it was a real unit that got charged. And there's no like way around that. So on that terrain, I could really see the Zerks doing good work.
Yep, and we got Brother Tobias there, member for 8 months. Thank you so much for being a long-time member here. In my defense, for bad Votann opinions, they perform a lot better on the German terrain, yep, on WTC terrain. And Feed the Quinn, we definitely are keeping him well-fed, 100%.
Of course, you've seen him. He
continues to grow.
Unfolded like a ladder, just in height, just... So, at some point, he's going to become 7'8", and we cannot stop him anymore.
No, then you won't be able to see him on the stream games. You'll just see his chest. We'll be all just staring up at the sky.
Where'd he go? So,
Sisters of Battle up next.
52% win rate.
Not the 44% from last month.
Although that is more embarrassing.
Yeah.
Because they were better then.
A lot better. Shame on you, Bringers of Flame players.
So here's the thing, right? Bringers of Flame had 13 players at a 57%. Hallowed Martyrs had 4 players at a 62%. An Army of Faith and Penitent Host really helps make that army look a lot more balanced in the end.
Yeah, they still absolutely have some of the best rules in the entire game, easily.
Yeah, they are one of the better...
Their data sheets are insane, too. They got data sheet buffs everywhere, and they got some of the best detachments. Yeah. It's insane.
They lost a bunch of points, but you can still make very good builds, either out of Exorcists or out of just fire shooting,
the normal good stuff,
or you can make a Hallowed Martyrs build that looks really good. This is, by the way, this top line number is why you can't necessarily trust stats. This clearly says that they are a problem, right? 62 and 57, even with 13 players playing it,
even with their list going up like 450 points since the Codex release, something like that.
But 6 players decided they wanted to play Army of Faith, which was an interesting decision, and one sad sack won 1 of 6 games with Penitent Host. And that really does help sync the numbers and make Sisters, okay, they look reasonable.
Still really good.
They're still incredible. They're still one of the best armies in the game, for sure. Fast gun good. Bringers of Flame go real far, shoot real hard. And you gotta be scared about that. You gotta be at least very careful.
Chaos Space Marines. So they are sitting at a 51 together, but let's look at the detachments here. We've got the Chaos Cult. Still people are playing it, and it's still doing pretty well. Accursed Cultists, they were not nerfed out of the meta. They aren't just, a blood surge moving into you all throughout your shooting phase, but they're still going to be able to do it once, and it's still a pretty cheap amount of points for what you get for the unit. So that's not surprising.
That on both those detachments, there's 3 combined players who looks like they went 3 and 5 each, which is a solidly respectable score, but 3 players going 3 and 5 does not a broken army make. Especially Deceptors. Deceptors objectively doesn't have rules.
I've seen some very good Chaos Space Marine players still playing the Accursed Cultists.
Yep.
And that's not going to surprise me. Deceptors is much more surprising, but that's, one person at an event somewhere.
One person went 3 and 5.
And then Renegade Raiders. This has been the most popular detachment. No surprise to see that here. And it is also out of the most played detachment, it is the winningest at 56. So I think Renegade Raiders is still really strong rule set, and I expect that to be probably the most popular detachment continuing on in this meta.
It had 3 players go X and 1 or X and O, which is what you're looking for. Right? It had 3 players actually performing very, very well, which means that there's some potential in there. Packbound is okay, solid. It's not like a bad detachment or anything. Veterans of the Long War, very low win rate, but one person went X and O or X and 1, which makes me think, like, you reread it recently.
Yeah, it plays like a Space Marine detachment. It just has a wide set of tools.
Yeah.
And when to use those particular tools is not always obvious, but it does have a really nice toolkit. I mean, literally, that detachment has better strats than every Admech detachment besides Hunter Cohort.
Well, I mean...
I would just trade all the other detachments, and I would take Veterans of the Long War.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can see that, right? Liam VSL took Veterans of the Long War and won both the LGT Invitational and the LGT, and I don't think that list took any nerfs, right?
No, it took buffs.
It got buffs, yeah. So Veterans of the Long War is still very strong if you know how to use its power. Otherwise, 40%. You know? I mean, only 4 players, so there's 20 games. There's not like a ton to take out of that, but it's interesting for sure. Astra Militarum, Imperial Guard, combined regiment, 51% win rate with 44 players. I will never, and I mean never, say Admech is tough to play. So
Admech or
sorry, Astra. Admech, fine. Astra Militarum, Guard. So diving into the 51%, I do think that there are a decent number of games. There's 223 games played with the faction. It was incredibly popular.
Yeah.
44 players.
I believe it's top 3 in terms of popularity.
Yeah, which a little crazy to me, honestly.
Yeah, but not everybody just has a guard army sitting around.
No,
and certainly not everybody has 20 or 30 Accolons, since they're quite annoying to buy, since they're only in that big Hive Storm box. But guard players are finding them.
Yeah, for sure. It's one weekend. I think guard are pretty good. I do think they have some issues, which is that I've seen so many guard players playing just absolute nonsense. just playing like the worst lists. It could be hobby lag on 30 Aquilons. I also think that Aquilons are not good in the way that like a lot of players can use them in. They're really, really good in the way that a top player can use into a top player, into another top player. Because like they're insane at like taking backfields and move blocking and things like that, scoring primary,
rapid
things
ingress
like that,
plays.
rapid ingress plays, stuff that most players are probably not going to use properly. So Aquilons I don't think are going to elevate the win rate generally that much, but I do think they're going to elevate this number, right, the X and 1 X and O number.
Yep,
which I think is more significant. I know that they're really hard to stop. They're really annoying while you also have a guard army. I played a little guard at DreamHack. They have some issues. They can be a little inconsistent. And yeah, there's probably some hobby lag. It's a very good army. It has performed well this weekend, 51% with 7 top finishers, just checking. Yeah, 2 event wins as well.
Yep.
So very, very solid army right there. 2 event wins, 7 X and 1 X and O performances. Just a solid army.
All right. Death Guard, a nice increase for them. They had been sitting below 50% towards the end of the last meta, but I think they're back in a big way. We've been talking about it a lot. You can watch the game from yesterday as well against Jean's Dark Angels. This is legit one of the strongest armies out there right now.
Yeah, I think it's really good. I think it's a little underexplored. We're definitely like figuring out a new archetype at the moment. Not really a new archetype. It has been around before, but like refining it. The 18 Death Shroud Mortarian core and then what goes around that. And we're still very much up in the air on what goes around that. But it seems very solid. It's dirt cheap for a lot of stats. And it can be very tough to deal with the -1 weapon skill, -1 ballistic skill. Just takes forever to chew through the army. I had a game into Quentin, not on stream, just in practice, where I played the Death Guard and I just like moonwalked through his sisters, just like, oh, you shot me, that didn't do anything, cool.
When you put this amount of Terminator bodies at this low of a price, it does get extremely difficult to chew through.
Yeah,
and the layered defense that you can have, or the layered offense, is very nasty.
Yeah, and Death Shroud are really annoying to deal with. The army also has several like auto win matchups, which is quite nice. Like a lot of melee armies find that army very annoying to deal with. I've watched it just like cut through.
Well, they can be
Blood
-2
Angels.
damage.
They can be -2 damage. They can be -2 to hit, right? -1 weapon skill, -1 to hit. They can be, -2, functionally -2 to hit. So like if you hit on 3s, you hit on 5s now, because -1 weapon skill and -1 to hit both stack with each other. And then -1 to wound if your strength is higher than 6, which if you're a relevant combat unit probably is. So -2 to hit, -1 to wound, up to -2 damage. And yeah, Orks cannot win that game. Like, just can't. I think GSC have an incredibly hard time if they want to try and win that game. Blood Angels, almost impossible. Custodes, it feels like playing into, like, it feels like fighting your bigger brother, right? If you're like 6 and you're fighting your 12-year-old brother, he just puts his hand on your forehead and just like, I can't do anything. What's happening?
Custodes hitting on 4s is not ideal.
Yeah. They hate hitting on 4s, wounding on 4s, then being 1 damage. They really, yeah, they don't like that. They do not like that. So yeah, it's got a lot of potential, and I think that number is only going to go up personally.
Aeldari sitting at a very even 50% win rate. Not too surprising. They have good rules. They allow a great player to exercise player skill, but at the same time, if you don't play them well, they are very difficult to pilot now.
At this point, yeah, for sure. I think 50% is exactly where they should be.
We got there. It took a year.
Yeah,
it took a longer year and a half.
It took a while. But they're finally down to the point where if it's a bad Eldar player, I'm not concerned. And if it's a good Eldar player, I am concerned. And that's, I think, where every army should be. You know? Whereas if it's a good, Agents of the Imperial player, I'm not really concerned. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. World Eaters, I think, are sneakily one of the tougher armies to play in the game. You can just run at your opponent, and that will work about 50% of the time into not great players. But if you want to perform well with World Eaters at a higher level, it requires an intricate knowledge of like tempo and combat minutia and how to stall when the game's going poorly and try and sit like on a points lead and stall your opponent out, or how to crush their points early. It's actually surprisingly complicated, especially since it brings the game down to like 1 or 2 important turns where you cannot afford to lose an excess of units. The army's fairly elite. My list personally did not change with the balance update. It got like 30 points that I wasn't using, and then it lost 30 points that I wasn't using. So we're right back to where I was at DreamHack like 6 months ago.
It's like my Votann list. It's just not changing.
The list right now is 1970. What am I supposed to do about that? It just is what it is. I think World Eaters are pretty good, and I think a good World Eaters player is a force. But I do not like the no Angron lists. Angron is World Eaters at this point. Like, it feels like you're playing without half your rules if you don't take him. I'm just not that scared of no Angron lists. Also, you can't get Angron back unless you take Angron the first time. Right, and there is just like a free win condition there. If he dies on turn 2 or whatever, and your opponent devotes all the resources, and then he immediately comes back, it's like, you messed up now. So I think you have to take Angron. It also, you can get damage capped out if you don't take him. Right, you could be -1 damage, -1 to hit, -1 to wound, and all of a sudden your billion attacks don't really like do anything. Right, you don't even need all of those, just like 1 or 2 of them, and then suddenly you can't kill a unit.
The full rerolls is really impactful.
The full rerolls is like mandatory in my opinion. Otherwise, -1 to hit really sucks. It's just really not fun. You hit on 4s with your chain fist. What
about -1 weapon skill, -1 to hit?
That would, and -1 to wound and -1 damage. Yeah, that would be bad. Without Angron, that matchup is straight up unwinnable. With Angron, it's tough. So yeah, no, I like World Eaters. I think they're in a decent place, and I think you have to be good to play them well. Nick Harding, $2 super chat, says, get your Deathwatch army ready, Jack. Richard does have a Deathwatch army. That's too soon.
I do actually have a Deathwatch army. It hasn't been updated in a while.
That's weird.
But Games Workshop's life of love. But we are building up an Imperial Agents army, and like Jack was mentioning, Charlie is going to be coming over, who's been playing a lot of Imperial Agents, and putting them on stream for us.
Dude, he is the most excited player for Imperial Agents. That stream is going to be hype. He's also going to be, I believe, on our podcast talking about his run at...
Yeah, I think that'll come out in about 2 weeks.
Something like that. Yeah, the Onslaught Team Open thing that we just went to. It's an 8-man team event where he performed a very vital role in our team. Like a very vital role, actually. Blunting a lot of shooting armies, and then just messing up our opponent's pairing cycle because they had no idea what it did, and then they let it like fall into weird things that he killed. It was great.
Grokvar with 5 gifted memberships. Thank you so much, Grokvar. Really appreciate your support. And if you were gifted a membership, make sure you click that accept button so you get access to all the awesome benefits of that membership. All right, so Blood Angels.
Blood Angels. One person played Lost Brethren and went 0-5. We don't talk about that. Everyone else played Liberator. Yeah, Angelic Host nowhere to be found. I would personally just take Liberators. I don't think you've been wowed by Angelic Host.
Unfortunately, Space Marine Vanguard is just a better detachment than Angelic Host. Angelic Host is paying the points for all the previous Marine nerfs and doesn't deserve that.
Doesn't get all the buffs either.
Yeah. So it's really lacking that. If they could get the Centurion devs with Deep Strike, that detachment would be really, really sweet. But it just doesn't have firepower that synergizes outside of Inceptors, and you need something long range. And if you run, Ballista Dreads or Vindicators, it doesn't synergize with what you're really trying to do with the detachment. So I think it's missing a tool and or cheaper units to apply what you get in the detachment. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, Liberators definitely feels like it's such a dumb name compared to Sons of Sanguinius, whatever. Yeah. But Liberators definitely feels like the way I would play it if I were playing Blood Angels. And it feels like a very 50% win rate army. Decent unit, good units even. But quite expensive, so you don't have a lot of them.
Yeah.
And that is basically where Blood Angels
land. Hit super hard.
They hit very hard. They're not super durable anymore. They are very expensive. So I do think they land right about that 50% mark, which is a solid place to be, for sure. I don't love their tools into the top end of the meta. Their tools into like a lot of heavy shooting armies is not great.
Yeah, I've had my Sanguinary Guard get evaporated.
That has been my experience too.
Like, okay. So I started running them without the characters just to keep the unit cheaper. But the characters are still really, really good. Dante's awesome. All right, Adeptus Custodes. So one talent player.
One talent player. Yeah, that's Folger Piles. Folger went 5-0, 6-0, something like that, which means that the other player did not do that great. He went like 2-5.
It was 2 talent players, right?
Yeah, they're 2 talents players. Yeah. One of them was Folger, and he won an event with them. I don't remember what the event was, but we have him. I believe he did a podcast, and that should go out like in a week or two.
I'm not sure.
Something like that. Talons, I'm pretty convinced on being the best attachment now. As soon as Folger did, I was like, oh my God, what am I, crazy? Like, no, of course that's the best attachment. Like, it has rules in it. A couple. Not that many. Let's not go crazy here. But, like, it has a couple rules.
That reactive move. Heck yeah.
Right? Yeah. No, the reactive move is better than everything in Shield Host and Null Maiden Vigil combined. Pretty much. The crit 5s or +1 AP every turn is legitimately a good rule, but it doesn't help you in the place where you're actually losing games, which is in your mobility and ability to initiate or keep your units safe.
Yeah, that resource management.
Yeah, the resource management is the place where you have the issue. Yes, you hit a little less hard in Talons. That is fine. That's not the issue you need to compensate for. So having an army that has, a bunch of damage that can't use it in Shield Host, can't use it effectively or efficiently, not what we're looking for. Talons giving you some pretty decent enhancements, actually, if you want to go down the path of taking them. Folger didn't, but I personally would. It's a, personal preference thing. He likes the Sisters Rhino. Sister Rhino is pretty solid as well. 6-inch reactive move is incredible. Not being extorted for your Feel No Pain against mortals is also really good because you're just never using that 1 CP to defend against a grenade or a tank shock or something.
Yeah, it's like for a speculative 1 CP for rolling barely any dice. No.
Dude, if you grenade and tank shocked me, you spent 2 CP, I spent 2 CP. I'm the only one who took damage out of this interaction. Like that sucks. Yes, the conditional 2 CP +1 to wound is not good. It is 2 CP. A unit, technically 2 if you want to give your sisters +1 to wound, but you don't. Technically 2 units, but 1 Custodes unit for 2 CP gets +1 to wound against a wounded target in combat.
It reminds me of one of the Admech stratagems from the Explorator, where you have to have disembark from a transport this turn, shot a unit on the specific objective you targeted, and then you get +1 to wound on that unit.
It has
it's like, how many hoops do we have to jump through for?
The worst one I've seen is Null Maiden Vigil having an enhancement that only works against battle-shocked psychers. That one...
Thousand Suns,
that
baby.
One sent me. They need to not only be a psyker, but also be battle-shocked. Like... But, Talons the Emperor is really good. You also have Fallback, Shoot, and Charge, which Shield Host also has, but you're not losing that value. Like, that's the best Shield Host strat, and it is also in Talons. So, take Talons. Take just the same army you're playing in Shield Host, just play it in Talons instead, and it's probably going to be better. Shield Host, I believe I looked on the meta dashboard, and if you look 50% win rate into 50%, like 50% or below ELO into 50% or below ELO, Custodes is one of the best armies.
Yep.
But if you adjust for, well, as soon as it does adjust, we'll get back to that. Oh, there we go. If you adjust for top 50%, and any second now, I swear, okay, top 50%.
There's a lot of data in 40K, Jack.
There's so much data. I'm willing to bet that Adeptus Custodes drops, down to about 50%.
Wow,
which is
Templars,
honestly higher than I would have expected it. So
how are Black Templars that high?
Sasha, maybe? I don't know. Like, the data gets very skewed as you go up the ELO percentile.
Fair.
Yeah. Just because single players, like, if you just look at, like, the top 15%, it's like 30 players or something this weekend. And you just start getting real skewy results based off of single interactions. So, like, Folger is in the top 15% of ELO. I would bet my life on it. And so he went undefeated in an event, and I don't know. It's interesting. Data's interesting. Small sample size, yeah.
Oh, we got a couple super chats here. We've got Negative Nezzy. Thanks so much for your super chat. A little bit of a different message, but I just got a new job. Awesome. Congratulations on your new job.
Congratulations.
Thanks for the amazing content that helped me get through the stuff of the last 5 months. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We really appreciate your support. We're so glad that you got your new job and hope it is an amazing experience for you. All right. And then we have Cam with a $2 super chat. Thanks so much. Just hit your 9-inch charges from Deep Strike and 4-up invuln saves. Easy.
Yeah, if you do, then you do. Like, we've all played the Custodes players who just pass all their invulns like it's nothing, and those games suck. I do think Shield Host is like the definition of a 50% win rate army.
It's very close.
It's right very close. Like, even at the higher levels, it'll win some games just because sometimes you can't stop what it's doing. But it does not feel like a good army. Like, it feels bad to play. Let me put it that way. I think Talons is where we need to go if we want to take Custodes.
Tyranids here. So Crusher Stampede only had 2 players, but is still performing quite well. Invasion Fleet, no surprise that this is the most played detachment. It does have the best rules. It has the most options. It's a really strong detachment, and we've seen it have success for quite a while.
You do have to know what you're doing with that army. Like, if you're not a good Tyranids player, you will get poor results out of it.
2 players also hanging out playing Assimilation Storm, which is one of the least played of the detachments from top competitive players for Tyranids. Synaptic Nexus has fallen off mostly because Invasion Fleet kind of just does things better. And then Vanguard Onslaught, which has been a popular detachment, down at 30%. Only 6 players, but honestly surprised to see 30% out of that.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think Vanguard Onslaught, you just take the same list, put in Invasion Fleet, and it's probably better. Like, the Gene Stealers in Vanguard get Advance and Charge. The Gene Stealers in Invasion Fleet get a 5-up Feel No Pain reactively and can get lethal or sustained 5s in combat. Like, that's just better. Personally, that's...
Invasion Fleet's real good.
Invasion Fleet's real good, man. It has some good rules. Necrons, we got a 47%. Not doing quite so hot.
So we've
Annihilation
Legion, which don't worry, you might not know that this is a detachment Necrons have, but this is the Destroyer detachment. It's absolutely garbage. It's completely terrible. The rules are awful. Go ahead and read it if you want to laugh. But
every so often I read it because I'm like, wow, I could really get behind playing a bunch of score packs. Then I read it, I'm like, what? I'm at the end already. How did that happen?
There's nothing going on there. There's a trap in combat stratagem on.
Oh my god, there's another.
There's another one, Jack.
There's another one. Okay, every army in the game has a trap in combat. My point is irrelevant.
One army.
Shush you. Cut his mic.
But 2 players played it and actually had a 60% win rate, which is amazing for them. Great job, everybody. Obeisance Phalanx, which received a direct buff in the last update, getting access to Silent King finally having Triarch, which he is the Triarch. And they're doing pretty well, 50%. That's exactly where you want a detachment that basically had very little play previously to be. They have effectively 2 stratagems that you build around. It's a solid one. Hypercrypt down to 47%. It really isn't surprising to me. A lot of Hypercrypt game plans were about trying to get an early edge damage-wise and fall behind in scoring, and then come back in the late game with Secret Missions. With Secret Missions going down, I think Hypercrypt took one of the biggest nerfs in terms of the Secret Mission change, I would say.
For sure.
Awakened Dynasty after that, and then Court. Basically, nobody's playing Court. I honestly think Court is still probably the second best detachment. It's, once again, that 6-inch reactive move on Wraiths. is so strong.
Dude, it's a good strat.
The
It's a good strat.
Doomstalkers with Silent King is still a really good shooting combo. You don't get as much stuff as you used to, but you have good rules in there.
Yeah, for sure. Dark Angels, I don't know what to say here. We had a bit of a drive back from, what was it, DreamHack? DreamHack, where we were like looking through LGT and other events to see how people were doing. Like we were looking at how like the worst players in the event were doing. Like what armies are they taking? Because it was a long drive, okay? It was a long drive. And we had the theory that like bad armies, like people who are at the bottom level of events still have good armies now. It used to be back in like 8th edition, if you saw someone who went 0-6 or whatever at an event, their army would be like garbage.
Like a battle force.
Like a battle force, basically, like just not good. And now even the players who are like 0-6 or whatever at events sometimes have quite good armies.
What we saw is especially at team events over singles events, people at teams events who still do poorly typically have good lists. And it seems mostly that their teammates give them like, hey, copy paste, just play this, but they don't have any experience playing of it, so fail. Whereas in singles list, you still saw some like randomly terrible
We did see some randomly terrible stuff. It was interesting. Yeah, teams events for sure, even...
Because the bottom two armies, I believe at the event, I could be wrong on this, were a Hypercrypt list led by the Silent King and some amount of shooting, which is a good, strong list in that meta. And then the other one was Dark Angels Gladius, triple Vindicator version.
Yeah, which are good armies.
Which is really good armies.
Good armies. So it's just interesting. I don't know. The Gladius has always been kind of a hard army to play. I know that back from when I played the Black Templar Gladius. I know a bunch of people picked it up and had trouble doing so. Same thing with the Dark Angels Gladius. Dark Angels Gladius has a lot of rules you have access
to.
It's
at 50% though. Like
that's 50%, which is still good. Still good. It's one weekend, so whatever, blah, blah, blah. But
Stormlands is the one that a lot of people have pivoted towards. And it had 4 players here, and they performed 60% win rate. It has been competing, not in John's brain, but in other people's brains, for one of the best Dark Angel detachments. Obviously, it's a Space Marine detachment, but it helps their units.
Yeah, gives you advance in charge, as Brother Tobias points out. If you are dropping the Fire Discipline unit, it's not like the wrong thing to just always have advanced fallback in charge. So, yeah, I could see that.
But what you can see here is that the Dark Angel specific ones are completely overshadowed by Space Marine detachments. And this is why when I say, Space Marine rules, they have a very good foundation for rules. Yeah, for the most part.
People always misunderstand our point here, and I feel like it's willingly misunderstand it. If you have a choice between an army that is, regular Marines or regular Marines with like 2 units that regular Marines don't have access to, i.e., non-Codex compliant chapters, right? You're going to pick the one that gives you more options. So if you are trying to make the best list possible, you're going to pick the one that has the most options, even if Space Marines generally would have made an okay list, right? If they would have made like a list that could get you 50% win rate, you're going to pick the one that has an extra option in there, because Dark Angels are just better than regular Marines, right? They just are. They have more options. The Calgar and Ventress and whatnot aside, although you arguably shouldn't put them aside in that discussion. So if you have a player who is trying to do their best, they're going to take the one that's like 5% better, right? They just are going to do that, which means you are self-selecting for people who aren't getting that 5% edge. And so the people who are playing generic Marines are people who are not trying to get that 5% edge, and therefore probably aren't going to do as well anyway, because they aren't going out and going as hard, right? Which is totally fine. Nothing wrong with that. If you want to play Raven Guard, I think there should be rules to encourage you to do that and make it more interesting, which I think they said that they were taking a look at.
They're going to look at Codex Space Marines.
I don't know what the heck that means.
Whatever that means. But these detachments are legitimately good. I would trade everything non-hunter cohort in the Admech Codex for these 2 detachments. Yeah. Just immediately. I don't care. Get them out of here. These 2 detachments are so much better. And if these Space Marine players actually played some of these other detachments, they would realize, like, damn, Gladius is really, really darn good.
The Gladius is one of the best detachments in the game, straight up. It is. If you take an Ultramarines Gladius, if you are playing not Ultramarines, regular Codex Marines, yes, that army is not very good. If you're playing an Ultramarines Gladius that has a bunch of Vindicators and, Marnius Calgar in an Eradicator brick and a bunch of skirmish. That army's really good, like actually really good. It is not easy to play. It is deceptive that it looks like it should be easy to play because it kind of looks kind of Battle Forcey, but it is not. And so you will see people not doing particularly well with it.
If you look at regular Space Marines, you can see that the Vanguard has a big resurgence here, 9 players and multiple event wins and a good amount of wins overall. Still slightly under 50%, which is not too surprising because it's not the easiest army to play, but it is very strong. Gladius down at 44%. It is not quite as popular, and that's once again because if you look, here's the Gladius players. Same thing if you look at Black Templars or some of the other ones, but Dark Angels being the primary one right now.
They could be taking a Gladius list that is 10% worse. They're choosing not to. So the good Gladius players are, as a, not every single one, but as a trend, the better Gladius players are going to be playing the slightly better version of the Gladius, and therefore they're going to be overrepresented in terms of win rate there.
Yep.
It's not like the end of the world. I really hope they do something about generic Codex Marines. I think that'd be tight.
I love how there's always one person playing the worst detachment and doing abysmally because it's such a hard detachment to play. But you're a hero out there. You are a hero of the first company.
Not even hard in terms of complicated, just hard in terms of nightmare difficulty.
Yeah. Grey Knights, 45% win rate here. 20 players, but they've continued their downward trend after successive nerfs, which is not too surprising.
The meta is also very hostile to Dread Knights right now. You have Sisters who rip through them at light speed.
Yep.
And you have Guard who, if you try to get in a shootout
it's not going to work.
Using Dread Knights into Lehman Russes, I promise you it will only go one way.
T11's terrible for Grey Knight shooting.
There's other reasons, I'm sure, like Grey Knights is
just a hard army to play.
It's a very tough army to play, which does not do it any favors. I don't think it is in a particularly amazing spot right now if you take the Dread Knight build. Actually, I think it's just in a bad spot right now if you take the Dread Knight build. The Dread Knight build has a lot of Predators in the meta right now, and they're not at the bottom end, right? They're not going to get knocked out for you. You got to play them, and if you're going tit for tat when you have a toughness 8 vehicle that has a strength 10 gun into a toughness 11 vehicle that has a strength 14 gun, you're not winning that fight. Did we skip Chaos Knights?
We did skip the 2 Knights because I was talking on Space Marines.
Yeah.
Not too surprising. There's just limitations in the data sheets that you have access to and the stratagems. They're just, they said that Imperial Knights is early next year. Chaos Knights probably won't be too far after that. But they just need something else going on. They are literally stat checks. Can you deal with this amount of vehicles? And guess what? If you look at a lot of the best armies, they're running a bunch of vehicle chassis. The meta is designed to kill vehicles right now, and you're an army of vehicles.
Yeah, and if you run into an army that can't handle that, you'll probably win that game. Yep. But if you run into an army that can handle that,
you just get cleaved through.
If you are not better than your opponent by probably a decent margin, you are going to lose that game. If you are better than your opponent by a decent margin, you're going to have a hard game that you'll win. But if you are equal skill level, you'll lose that game. And it's not really up to you, right? It's not really up to you. You don't have a lot of cool plays you can make. It's just, did your opponent oopsie daisy their target priority? Did they not do what they wanted to do?
I said it for a really long time that these two need to be redesigned to play Warhammer 40K. They are designed as a stat check because of the models that they have access to. It's just, I don't enjoy playing against them. I don't think Knight players enjoy just saying hey, can you kill me? Can you not kill me? It's just not that interesting. They need something else going on. They need more synergy between Big Knight, Little Knight, and then they need a second layer of cheap infantry stuff.
I think Chaos Knights should get Cultists, and I think Imperial Knights should get Guardsmen. In their book.
Yeah.
And they can be called whatever. They can be called, Chaos Knight Attendants.
Titan, Legion, Herald Squad, whatever.
Yeah, they should be able to get those in there and then have fewer, bigger, knights on the board.
Make the bigger knights stronger, but you can only run 1 or 2 of them. There's no stat check of 4 giant knights that your opponent has to deal with. And then for the little knights, have them have more synergy with the big knights so that they can do more interesting things if they're being supported by one.
Yeah, it's very, can you handle 4 big knights?
Yeah.
No? All right, I win. Can you handle 4 big knights? Yes, and most people will say yes. Then I'm going to have a very hard game, And that's not what you want. So I think they need to make it so that what you want to do when you're building lists, right? What you're rewarded for doing is take like one big knight that's cool, maybe a second if you really wanted to be a wild card, and then take like 4 or 5 armigers, and then like a bunch of squads of like attendants or something, right? That would be cool. That would be a dope army. The army where it's just like, yeah, I took 3 big boys and 3 little boys. Can you deal with that? And it's like, yeah, I can. I'm a 40k army in 2024. Yes, I can.
Yeah, that's really what needs to happen there, frankly. Mm-hmm. Orks, 45% win rate, but if we look, Warhorde is the most popular detachment at 54%. No surprise there. Dreadmob has seen a decent resurgence here, going up to 48%, and one player's kind of hanging around with Green Tide, but you see Big Hun, Bully Boys, Cult of Speed kind of dragging down that win rate overall.
Yeah, Orks.
But I think Orks are kind of where Warhorde is. Like, I mean, this is what Orks style is realistically.
I would not really consider anything other than Warhorde. I suppose you can make a Bully Boys build if you really tried, but I really like Warhorde. I really like Warhorde. I think Warhorde is like a 52% win rate army if you play it right. 50, 53 or whatever, where you have some advantages, you have some disadvantages, but you're quite strong if you can get your game plan rolling. I think the Orks at 45% is really held back by those other detachments people are playing.
Yeah, 100%. Drukhari down at 44%. And
no, I thought they were 66.
63? No.
63.
This is mostly off the back of Sky Splinter kind of cratering. They were, 56, 58% detachment previously, and they still have a good amount of players here, but a big drop off. And those nerfs really hit Sky Splinter quite hard. They were significant. These were heavier nerfs than most armies received.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know how Drukhari was the heaviest. Actually, Drukhari wasn't the most punished army. It was the second. The first was Black Tide out of Black Templars. That went up 220.
Sisters went up more too.
Sisters went up 180 ish. Quentin's army went up like 185. Black Tide went up 220 minimum, just based off of the essentials in that army. So yeah, Thousand Suns, by the way, also went up. And my personal impression is I think they are at their breaking point, if not a little past it. They are in critical unit failure at the moment.
They really missed the opportunity in June to nerf their Cabal point. The double move should have been nerfed, and Doom Bolt should have been nerfed, and they should have got more stuff in their army to compensate for that. They just have broken rules. Like Magnus rules are absolutely insane.
Yeah.
You can't have broken rules and then have a lot of stuff. It is just too strong, and they've been strong the entire edition. This is the first point where they're really they've passed the razor's edge of, I don't have really enough stuff to play the game. My opponent needs to make some sort of early game mistake that I can capitalize on. And if they don't, I'm just playing 40k, and my army's not really designed to do that anymore.
I have played Thousand Suns a couple of times since the Balanced Data Slate, and since the Uniform Field Manual, I suppose. And what always happens is, they're very scary, and they still have a bunch of Cabal points, but like you kill a couple squads of goats on disc, and all of a sudden their army stops working. Right? They stop being able to get primary, they stop being able to get secondary, which means they have to expose very expensive units if they want to try and hold objectives, and then they just get killed because they're funny tactical Marines. And then all of a sudden it's just Magnus flying around by himself. That has happened like 3 times.
They're my number one for just having a whole redesign. They just need to chuck out what they did and redesign the book.
I think that even Thousand Suns players want their rules to get nerfed just so that you can undo their hellacious points increases. I don't want to know how much the army from like a year and change ago has gone up. I don't want to know that. It's probably like 450 points or some nonsense. It's hellacious points nerfs. Like literally an army is like 20 funny tactical Marines, Magnus, a Mutalith, and 9 goats on disc. That's it. Like that's all you got. You can clear through that except for Magnus in 1 turn with most armies if they are forced to expose. And that's not good for a close range shooting army.
Yeah, their rules need to change. They just cannot have broken rules. It's just a mistake of their index was a mistake in the beginning.
Yep.
And they just
they fixed Eldar without the points being ridiculous. They did not fix Thousand Suns. They've just been driving. Like they have made some changes, and that's fine.
Minor, like okay, Doombolt can't target the lone op from 18 away. It has to do it from 12. It shouldn't do as much damage, and it should be worth less Cabal points. Like they should have just made that change right there. They edited it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know, man. I don't know. Also, they pigeonholed themselves with that rule. It was kind of like 7th edition Psychers, where you got better at Psychic for the more Psychers you had. So a Psychic army would be like 90% Psychers, just to get as many Psychic dice as possible. And Thousand Sons are kind of in the same boat. Like, you don't have rules unless you have Cabal points. So people just take just characters and units to put those characters in.
Yeah.
And then the bare minimum of trash around it.
Them and GSC should both have a set amount of reserve/Cabal points. You just, in a 2,000 point game, you get this amount. Design your list however you want.
Yeah, like they don't, the Thousand Sons armies don't look like lore Thousand Sons armies. They're like, I don't know, man. Every time you hear of Thousand Sons in the lore, you don't hear of friggin' like 7 sorcerers and nobody else showing up to a war zone.
Magnus is in every single battle.
That's true.
Because he has to be.
But like, if you look at like Total War Warhammer, right? Those armies are like 2 sorcerers doing all the casting and then like an actual army in front of them. That's neat. Like, they need to have a basic amount of rituals, that like basic amount of Cabal points you get for each level of battle you have, and some mechanic on there to make it more interesting or whatever. But they shouldn't just say, hey, you got to take 17 sorcerers in order to make your army work. Like, you should be able to take like just a couple of dudes, not have quite as many Cabal points or do quite as much with them, but have your mechanic like work without having to only take characters, because list building for that army is miserable.
Tau fall down to 41%, which is pretty surprising because they had been sitting just below 50% for a while. And, you know, Riptides did go up, and a couple other units, some of their cheap units went up, but not dramatically, but it is to the point where Tau is just an army where if you make mistakes with it, it's extremely punishing. That's just what happens.
I'll be honest, I don't really understand these stats. I mean, I guess I do, right? It's a fast, close-range shooting army on Ret Cadre.
Yep.
And it is primed to have people not do it right.
Yep. If you do it wrong, you are just going to get absolutely wrecked.
But like, Retaliation Cadre felt really strong when I played it. Like really strong. It had a billion units of crisis suits. Like, I had 24 crisis suits on that table. You have Cold Stars. You have to use everything in the perfect like order, I suppose. I don't know. I'm just trying to interpret these stats. Like, you have to have quick Cold Stars to force your opponent forward and do the perfect fire and fades to avoid, you know, getting hit back properly. And then you can drop on your opponent once you picked away their screens. And like, that's neat. But man, that army feels really strong. I don't know.
This could also be the case where there were more WTC style events than US Open events in the last, in this week.
Yeah.
Because Tau is dramatically harder to play on WTC by a significant margin.
I could see that.
And that would not surprise me. Space Wolves, huge decrease here, even to their best attachment, the Stormlance Task Force, where they were spamming their Thunderwolves. So they only had 6 players. They didn't perform terribly well. And then Champions of Rust, which is a solid detachment now, down at 32% with 8 players. So not a great week for the Space Wolves here. And Imperial Agents, once again, 2 players
going 3 and 10.
3 and 10. Imperialis fleet only to play detachment.
As Charlie points out in the chat, that does not count his record. It does not count his record from the team event, because team events aren't counted. But I think that Agents is one of the biggest deltas between how good it is in singles and how good it is in teams. But like any army, if you want to take it in teams, you can't just hand it to somebody and have them play it. They have to be as ridiculously over-enthusiastically excited for the army as Charlie is. Charlie loves that army, and I am excited to have him on stream with it.
Yeah, unfortunately, this doesn't include any teams data. This is all for singles events,
exactly,
like the meta dashboard. So yeah, that's going to be the breakdown here. We kind of looked at some of the trends. Obviously, we're low on data, but we're trying to come up with some things that are changing right now, and I think overall the meta is still in a pretty healthy spot, and I think this will change from week to week. Once we start looking at, okay, we've got 6 weeks of data on this meta, we'll start to have a better sense and move away from some of the swings from week to week that can happen in low data sets.
Did we answer this one?
No.
All right, so Red Rum has a €5 super chat. It says, I think the Space Marine dilemma is also that it's the marketing army. Don't understand the tower win rate. It seems besides the numbers that Cadre is crushing it. I personally think Cadre is really good. I played with it. You've played with it. It feels really strong. Now, I think it has some interestingly bad matchups into specifically tank commanders and exorcists. Exorcists are like designed in a laboratory to kill crisis suits.
The Death Guard is tricky too, I would say.
Death Guard is actually tricky. If you're -1 ballistic skill and -1 to hit, and you have to get within 6 inches to do your damage.
Yeah, without full rerolls, it's not ideal.
It's not good. It's bad. It's bad. It's not good. Now, if you take the fire knives, I suppose that helps.
Yeah, you might end up going farther. Have a couple more longer range units just for these type of matchups. Yeah, that could work.
So, and then also the Space Marine dilemma is that's the marketing army. I suppose. Yeah, it is like the first army that stereotypically people get into. I don't know. I haven't done a poll.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, 44% for the normal Gladius is still not that bad. And if you just had the option of Space Marine players had to play Codex Space Marines, these win rates would be higher. They'd be above 50% army, 100%.
Yeah, if the non-coast compliant chapters didn't exist, I think the win rate would be higher.
Yep, they would be one of the best armies in the game, and that's my personal opinion on it.
I think you'd have a really, really, really refined stock standard Ultramarines Gladius and Ultramarines Vanguard. The Ultramarines Vanguard would probably be a 50% win rate, but with multiple event wins. And the Ultramarines Gladius would probably be at like a 54%.
It'd have a higher win rate, but probably around the same event wins.
Probably around the same. Higher play rate, higher win rate, and about the same event wins. Now, we don't live in that reality. I'm just projecting. I don't know. Could be wrong. But that's what it feels like to me. I think all of the like tryhards, not to use that in a negative context, will be going to like Dark Angels and, Dark Angels I think is really where you go if you want to run the Gladius.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up. We got
some more.
We got some more super chats here. We got Alfonso. Thanks so much for joining at the War in Bronze. Really appreciate your support. Make sure you head over to Discord, go to user settings, click connections, and then click the YouTube icon and sync your account so you get access to our awesome international Discord community. And then Reckless, thanks so much for your $5 super chat. Guy in my local meta likes to take his Black Templar spam to local RTTs. So any tips for world leaders into Black Templar spam?
Yes, you are massively faster than him. So make sure that you hit the sides of his army first so that if you hit this side of the army ain't getting to you to fight. And then when you hit him, make sure you have Angron and, reroll ones to wound and sustained hits up. So you just carve through his units. Make sure you have every buff up when you hit the units. And then when they sideswipe into you, they're going to find it a lot tougher to kill you if they can't get their whole army to bear.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please give us a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell your friends about it. All of that massively helps us grow. In addition, let us know in the comments below what are the early trends in your local meta. We'd be happy to read that and interested to hear what you have to say. In addition, if you want to see more content from us, including all the different factions that we talked about and kind of what our ideas are on them right now in this new meta, well, check out The Worm at theworm.vhx.tv. There's a state of the faction video for every single army in the game, going through new list ideas, their place in the meta, and much, much more. And of course, there for every single battle report that we do, there are new post-game analysis videos with all that kind of media analysis you're really looking for about what went wrong in a game, how to kind of mitigate that the next time around, and what to change in lists. That's all going to happen for every single battle report henceforth in the Worm. So if you do enjoy our games, make sure you check those out and kind of get that boiled down knowledge right to your eardrums. All right. Thanks so much, everybody, for checking us out. And we will see you all next time for more content. Have a great week.
Bye.
So long for now.